And we expected the users to come to the dApp or come to the smart contract to see whatever their actions were. And that was the moment I realized that Web2 UX is actually driven by notifications. This meeting itself was triggered because you sent me a notification on Telegram, but more so, we had a Google Calendar meeting set up, and Google Calendar sent me a notification. And that was the aha moment. Like, that was the thing that I understood, that for Web3 to be as usable as Web2, and even more, or for Web3 to grow to that 1 billion users, notification and communication is something that needs to be solved. And that was the moment Push was born.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Devs Do Something. I'm your host, Sam Flamini, and today's guest is Harsh, the founder of Push Protocol. Push Protocol is building a decentralized communication and notification layer for Web3, and in this episode we deep dive the protocol on a technical level. So we'll walk through things like the Push smart contracts, what Push channels are, and what exactly the notification or piece of communication itself is under the hood. We also asked Harsh some more general questions about his engineering career and how to make the leap from being an engineer to a founder. He gave a lot of really good advice on this, and we think those of you that want to be founders one day will find this episode really valuable. So if you're interested in learning about how to build on top of Push, how Web3 push notifications are being built, and like I said, if you want to be a founder, I think this episode's for you and you're going to get a lot out of it. I also wanted to give a really short PSA for devs interested in actually building on something on top of Push. So at Superfluid, we run a monthly continuous hackathon called the Superfluid Wave Pool. So with the Wave Pool, you can submit a project at any point throughout the month, and at the end of the month, our team reviews all the submissions and we'll give out top prizes, just like the ones you're used to receiving at hackathons. So we've had dozens of really awesome submissions throughout the past couple of months, and we decided that for January we were going to bump the prize amounts up even more than they already were. So one new additional prize you can expect to see for January is a prize for the best project built on Push and Superfluid. This is one of our highest monetary amount prizes for the month, so we're really trying to incentivize it, partially because we think that there are a lot of amazing ideas that you can build on, which include both Push and Superfluid. So that might include things like a notification example which notifies a user when they start receiving a Superfluid stream, and then maybe also sends notifications when that stream is updated or deleted. Or maybe you want to build notifications into a Superfluid ecosystem project. So for example, we have a project called Ricochet Exchange, which is an exchange that lets you dollar cost average into your favorite asset using Superfluid streams. But what you might want to do, what might be useful for Ricochet users like myself, would be something like a price notification or notification telling me that I need to top up my balance so that my stream doesn't run out of funds early, right? So there are all kinds of really amazing things you can build. And like I said, we have that co-sponsored prize, so you should definitely check it out. So I'll put a link to all the Wavepool stuff in the show notes. If you're looking to make a little bit of extra money this month and contribute to that, you should definitely submit something. But above all, please enjoy this episode and let us know what you think. Thank you. Are you a DAO or crypto native business with salaried employees? Or do you perhaps work for one? If so, whether you're a team of 5 or 500, your organization can save time and money by streaming salaries with Superfluid, who also happens to be the beloved producer of this podcast. With salary streaming, your management team no longer has to worry about executing multi-sig operations every month or manually executing hundreds of separate transactions to pay their team. Contributors and employees, on the other hand, get paid by the second, which, to be honest with you, is a pretty killer benefit on the receiving end. Those of us getting paid via stream can connect our wallet to the Superfluid dashboard and see our balances ticking up in real time. It's kind of mesmerizing and feels like you're being jacked 10 years in the future. When you're paid in a stream, it flows in perpetuity until your team needs to adjust compensation, which effectively puts Web3 payroll on autopilot. Salary streaming is easy to set up thanks to our recent integration with CoinShift, the leading crypto treasury management platform. In just a few clicks, you can securely set up payroll for hundreds of employees in just a single transaction, all from CoinShift's dashboard. If this sounds like something you're interested in exploring, you should visit superfluid.finance/payroll and book a salary streaming demo today. Thanks to all of our sponsors. Let's get on to the episode. All right, so we're here today with Harsh from Push. Welcome.
Hey, Sam. Good to be here.
Yes, it's good to have you here. So we're really excited to go through all things Push, explore some of the technical aspects of what you're working on, and then just talk through like why this should exist in the first place. It's a very cool project, and it'll be fun to dive into. But before we do all that, I have to ask you our token first question. How did you get into crypto?
Got it. So it's kind of funny. So I got into crypto using the classic trading strategy of buy high and sell low. I think the year was 2014 or 2015. Bitcoin was making a lot of all-time highs. I think at that point of time it was $1,000. That was the first time it went to $1,000. And in India, everyone went nuts. Like there's this new thing called blockchain, and it's taking over the world. And it was very, very fascinating to learn about Bitcoin at that point of time. And of course, I got a very minuscule amount of Bitcoin, but the moment I got it, within a couple of weeks, Bitcoin crashed to $200. So that was my entryway to crypto. While I didn't profit from that, what I did got was a lot of intriguing question about what is Bitcoin and how does it operate. Um, I'm mostly I like everything tech, so I try to dabble into everything which is kind of tech, or even other. I mean, other genres as well, but yeah, tech more so than others. So of course, I had to dive deeper into blockchain and Bitcoin, and then I realized that there are other coins as well, not even Bitcoin. And I also realized that they're like shares. So if something is getting listed on an exchange, the token or the coin will rise or not rise based on how valuable that exchange is. So using that info, I created a software that used to trade coins based on whenever an exchange said that they want to release some token or they want to list some token out. Now I know that's called arbitrage, but yeah, that was the entryway. And yeah, I built that thing out. It performed well. Around 2017, it started picking up a lot of ERC20 coins, and it used to send me these weekly reports. So again, it spiked my interest. Like, what the hell is ERC20? Because every time I see a coin, I saw in the bracket ERC20, and that was when I realized that there's something called Ethereum that exists as well. And not only you have this blockchain wherein you can have a global ledger or financial system of sort, you can also have this other blockchain wherein you can program that financial system to be what you want it to be. And yeah, that was my entryway to crypto. And yes, here I am.
Nice. So it started off very much as a financial interest, I think. And I guess you got involved in the instead of you said buy high, sell low. Maybe you got involved in the I guess it's work to earn is the way you made it in the space, right?
Yes. I mean, from 2014 to 2018, it was just trading. 2018, I got super, super into coding because I was a entrepreneur before. I knew that, before you can start in a place, you need to go and you need to learn the nooks and hooks of the entire space. So that's why 2018, I joined a company and, tried to learn everything about crypto. But yeah, from 2014 to 2018, purely a trader, uh, purely in it for making the most profitable trade. Kind of realized that's not my foray, uh, but yeah, seen everything. I have been scammed as well. I think once or twice in the early days. So yes.
Yep. Yeah, it's part of the rite of passage, I suppose, at this point. So you went and you worked at this company. I think you got a pretty good sense of like how the underlying technology works there beyond just some of these financial things you were dabbling with. How did you initially come to this world of push notifications as something you wanted to focus on? I'd love to hear a little bit behind the founding story of Push.
Got it. So, I mean, 2018, when I got into Web3 per se, I see like I usually tell myself that 2018 is actually when I got into Web3 because before that it was not tech more so, it was only trading. But yeah, once I got into it, I kind of realized that we are super early, more so because I mean, when I started doing this Web2 entrepreneurship, I saw a heavy shift in the UX and how, Web2 apps operate. Because, I got into it when notifications for Web2 were just launched. So in 2018, when I started working, I found it so frustrating to actually work in Web3 because there were no tutorials. Whatever you wanted to do, you had to learn like that single action would alone ensure that you have to do 10 different things to get to that one single action. For example, let's say you want to interact with a protocol. Not many people realize when they are into Web3, not many developers realize, but uh, interacting with a protocol for the first time means 10 different steps. So I kind of realized that the UX of Web3 is pretty broken. And I think that is something everyone realizes like when they start Web3. I think one thing that Web3 offsets it pretty well is because of the innovation aspect of it. So, people don't mind, or techies, they don't mind when they have to interact with a protocol because they find it very cool. But when you come to users, all of a sudden, users like you and me, if our job is not Web3, if we are not excited by the tech of Web3 or the innovation of Web3, then for users, it becomes a problem because no one has that time to spend 4 or 5 hours to get a certain thing done or to learn a certain thing. So I kind of realized in 2018 itself that, this space needs a heavy UX backlift, and it's kind of the same like when the internet was launched. People who knew what a modem is, people who knew how to configure the modem, they were there. But now the technology is invisible, so everyone is on the internet. Or even emails, when they launched, like we had to configure our Outlook, we had to put pop address and SMTP address and so many things to get it to work. Now, Gmail does that, so not anyone doesn't know like how that works. There's the same thing with Web3. Like that is what I found, that whenever I was building something, whether it was a dApp, whether it was an aggregator, whether it was a P2P transaction or meta transaction, users, we kind of expected the users to know everything, and we expected the users to come to the dApp or come to the smart contract to see whatever their actions were. And that was the moment I realized that Web2 UX is actually driven by notifications. Like whatever app we are using, everything is driven by notifications. Like this meeting itself was triggered because you sent me a notification on Telegram, but more so, we had a Google Calendar meeting set up, and Google Calendar sent me a notification. And that is what happens in our day to day Web2 life. We get up in the morning, we see our mobile phones, and we see all the notifications, whether it's important email, Discord, Twitter, Venmo, PayPal, any Amazon delivery, anything we are doing in our virtual life. Everything, the services, they reach out to us as user and they tell that something of importance might be happening for you. It might be a delivery you are getting. It might be a payment you are receiving. It might be a game you're playing. It might be a friend who with which you are chatting with. All of these people or all of these services, they reach out to you via notifications. And that was the aha moment. Like that was the thing that I understood, that for Web3 to be as usable as Web2, and even more, or for Web3 to grow to that 1 billion users, notification and communication is something that needs to be solved. And that was the moment Push was born, or EPNS was born, and now we rebranded to Push.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And I think one thing that's really interesting to me is that the like what's happening with a lot of these Web3, I almost call them like pieces of internet infrastructure, right? Beyond just the financial things, but these are like really decentralized pieces of internet infrastructure that are far more composable than their Web2 counterparts. What I find interesting is that like the actual architecture for how these things work is very different. So, you use the example of Google, right? That entire stack, like between Google Calendar all the way down to the notification I get, all that is living on Google's backend somewhere, right? It's sitting in Google's data centers. We also mentioned Telegram. That notification I got from Telegram is sitting in some data center operated by Telegram, right? So these are all these little siloed backends that are all separate and proprietary. But what's very interesting about something like Push is that it completely breaks this model. Can you speak a bit more about how you see these architectures as different?
Got it. So, I mean, Web3 really shines over here, and that is one thing I love about Web3. It basically promotes innovation, not business monopoly. So, it is like if something is done, you go out and build on top of it the next innovation that can change lives, not just reinvent the wheel. So, the way I see Web3 stack is it's very composable. uh, it basically it basically ensures that any innovation or any product that will happen, uh, like in a future date, that product can be built very fast because you already have some pieces or some components or some modules that you can just pull in and plug it to your system, and they will magically work. This is actually very similar to how internet works, but not how other companies like Google or Microsoft work. So, for example, like what internet did was they said that this is a protocol, like let's say HTTPS, wherein we usually have websites. So these just said that this is a protocol and this is an open protocol, and anyone who builds on top of it, as long as the operating system can understand and interpret it, this is the similar interface that people will get. So because of that, the way internet communicates with one another using the TCP/IP model or whatever model, it basically doesn't need to be invented again. And because of that, you see so many companies or so many services that got built on top of internet, like real-time communication or Gmail or whatever MMORPGs, whatever you talk about it. Now, what happened was like when companies they built innovations on top of this open protocol, they kind of said that we want to protect whatever innovation we have done, and we don't want to make sure that other competitors can come and build on top of it. And that is what Web 2 came to be, wherein all the protocols or all the cool things that Web 2 did, it's very siloed, and the value of that innovation flows to the company. And what Web3 does is it kind of turns it other way around. It says that let let's make sure that everything is open, and the value of the protocol should flow to the user. And as long as that thing remains static, or that thing is in effect, you will have these modules on which other innovative modules can be built on, or these Lego blocks which can be used to build higher Lego blocks. And the innovation will keep on happening on a different scale, because once you have something that is working, uh, you don't have to replicate that. You can just put that module in your protocol, whatever you're building, and now you can innovate, or you can define things that can change the world for better, rather than define things that will change your business for better. So one way I see Web3, which is different than Web2, is the way that the value, the way it's made, the way Web3 operates, the value for certain things or whatever things a protocol does, it never flows to the company, it flows to the user. So let's say if you take Uniswap, for example, the value function of Uniswap is that you are able to uh, uh, get a automated market maker, or you are able to exchange any token in a very transparent way. So the value flows to the community, not to Uniswap. Let's say you take Ethereum, for example. So there's no Ethereum per se that takes the fee. The fee is taken by the miners, who are users who are running your protocol. So, or you take Bitcoin or anything else, any other protocol, the value will always flow to the users in Web3, rather than when you compare it to Web2, wherein the value of Google will flow to Google and it will be revenue of Google. So this is the biggest advantage Web3 has over Web2. Apart from being transparent, it basically gives users the ability to own the software and reap the benefits of the software.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good first principles breakdown of like what is happening here and how these different stacks are being built. Um, so let's go specifically into push. So our audience, like I said before we hopped on, is pretty technical, right? This is for Web3 devs. So I think what would be cool is to talk through like a specific maybe example of push. And if you want to give like a brief overview of like what push is beforehand, please feel free to do so. But I think like if you go to your docs, there's channels, there's the notifications themselves, there's instructions on how to actually uh, implement in the front end, like the display of receiving notifications. We'll dig into some of this stuff in more detail, but maybe first before we go into a specific example, can you just walk through specifically like the exact problem push is meant to solve, and then we can get into our specific example.
Got it. So yeah, let me tell the audience like what is push. Then we can go into why, and then we can of course get into a use case. Uh, so what is push? Push is basically a decentralized communication protocol using which any dApp, any smart contract, any backend can send any sort of communication, whether it's on-chain notification, off-chain notification, whether it's chat, whether it's any real-time communication. And these communications are now tied to your wallet address, which is your Web3 username, right? Like whenever you log into any dApp, your username is your wallet address. That is where everything is getting tied to. And it made sense that you need to have communications as well tied to your wallet address. And because this is done through a open network, through a multi-chain platform agnostic network, because of that, what happens is that any crypto wallet can now tap into these notifications or chats and can display it to the user. So that is what push does. It basically solves the problem of communication for Web3 users. Uh, Now, why it was needed? Well, before push, what we had was a very indirect form of communication. So, let's say if you were into DeFi, you couldn't like the protocols like Aave or any other DeFi related protocols, they couldn't communicate to their users or wallet addresses that something of importance might be occurring for them. Let's say a loan liquidation is near, but there was no way to communicate. Or let's say if you had an ENS domain account, uh, before your ENS expires, there was no way to communicate to your wallet address that your ENS domain will be expiring. Or let's say you were into governance, again, your Web3 usernames, which are wallet address, there was no way to communicate to those wallet address that something of importance might be occurring for them. And that was why the need for push arose. For example, like when we are talking on Twitter, we talk to each other via Twitter usernames. When we are talking on WhatsApp, we talk to each other via WhatsApp usernames, which are mobile numbers. But when we came to Web3, Web3 usernames were wallet address. That is what we use for signing anything or for interacting with anything, but there was no way for these wallet address to get notifications, or once notifications was done, to get chats or video calls or anything which basically signifies communication. And that was why push was born. Now coming to a use case, like again, every category of protocol. They basically need communication. But let's say, or let's take the example of Superfluid. So, for example, Superfluid, it streams money, right? It stream money to your wallet address. Now, without push, you will never know when the stream basically started, how much money has been streamed to your account, or when the stream is stopped. But with push, what happens is that a wallet address, whenever a stream is started, you will get a notification that your stream has been started. You will also get a notification if Superfluid wants to summarize that after 30 days you got so much money in the account, and whenever a stream is stopped, you can still get a notification. So all of a sudden, that UX of Web 2, wherein your salary is credited and the bank sends you a notification, now all of a sudden that exact same UX is available on Web3. And that is what push solves, like in terms of notifications. Now, once you have notifications, what happens is that, you know, and again, this is from Web2 way of progression. Like once we got notifications, then only we were able to do chats, because chats are driven by notifications itself. And that is what push did as well. So after notifications, we launched chat also, again for wallet to wallet, and we also previewed video calling for wallet to wallet, again based on these notifications. But yeah, that's how critical push is to the entire Web3 ecosystem.
Yeah, it goes back to what you said earlier, where people don't have to actually go in and look at some dashboard and remember to do so to understand what's been happening, right? I think that makes a ton of sense, and there are so many Web2 analogs that this should click into people's minds very quickly. So let's go into a specific, like let's take the Superfluid example, right? Let's say there's a dev out there listening who they want to build a project this month where they build exactly what we're talking about, right?
Mhm.
Enable notification to show like when a Superfluid stream has been started into my wallet. Can we walk through like an end-to-end example from like the dev side? I know you guys have a dashboard that might make this a little bit easier with no code stuff. But let's say like either using the SDK or your contracts. How does this work, right? I think you have to start with a channel creation, if I'm not
Yes.
mistaken, and then actually send push notifications themselves. So I'd love for you to walk through that.
Got it. So I'm going to go a little more technical over here, but I think we are all devs, so it's going to be interesting. So the first thing a developer has to do is they have to go to our protocol, and they have to activate their protocol on our protocol. When they activate their protocol on our protocol, that is what we call as a channel. The way to activate that is by depositing DAI, or by depositing push, like $50 worth of push or DAI into the protocol, so that you are given a channel. Why do we need a channel? Well, we need a channel because Web3 usernames, while they are wallet addresses, one of the core distinction from Web2 username and Web3 username is that a Web3 username is shared. So you use that same wallet address to basically interact with a ton of protocols, whether it's Uniswap, whether it's Decentraland, whether it's Polygon, whatever. So that is the reason why a protocol, when they want to send a notification, the first step is that they have to go ahead and create a channel. Once you create the channel, what it does is it basically acts like a anchor point wherein the users or other wallet addresses, they can come and they can say or they can opt in to receive notification from this channel. This opt-in is gasless, and it can be done either via our SDK or simply by doing a on-chain event as well. We recommend SDK because SDK is gasless. Again, it's just signing your consent with the ERC 721, and that's about it. And what it does is it basically makes the entire push notification system very non-spammy, because unless you as a user or a wallet address opt in to get a notification from the channel cannot send you the notification. Once these things happen, after that, the channel just needs to decide whatever logic points they want to tap into. They can create any logic point, whether it's on chain, whether it's off chain, whether it's manual, and then they have to decide like what notifications they want to send out to whatever subscribers of the channel they have. It can be a broadcast notification, it can be a one-on-one notification, it can be a subset notification. Again, it's basically the channel owners that decide the logic and the recipients of the notification, and they just send it out. Uh, Now, going into the technical architecture of it, like everything is basically signed so that the content cannot be mutated by us or by anyone else. Everything carries a verification proof. So the front end, wherein these push notifications or chat can be shown, the front end can itself verify that the content can hasn't been changed and has been signed. And yeah, because of that, we now have Web3 notifications and Web3 chats.
Nice. So, a couple follow up questions on that. First, let me just summarize that to make sure that I understood it properly. So, step one here is create a channel, right? So, let's say someone at Superfluid is working on it. They create a channel, they deposit 50 DAI into some contract you guys have, and that creates this channel. Then from there, what we would have is we'd probably build some kind of front end utility, which would allow people to opt in to receive notifications from that channel, right? And they are, I'm assuming, just sending a transaction. Are they signing something or sending a transaction to add their address to this list essentially, or how does that work? Is it just a
They can
signature, or
do,
is it something
yeah,
that's
they
actually
can
on
do
chain?
both. Signature is recommended, but they can send a transaction as well.
Gotcha. So when it comes to the channels themselves, then I mean, when people think of channels, I think the first thing that, especially people that have been in the space for a couple of years, the first thing that comes to mind is, oh, is this like a state channel for payments? Is the mental model similar, or no? I mean, that's the first thing that came to my mind. It's like, what is this channel specifically?
Got it. So think about it from a YouTube analogy. Like a channel is basically a particular curated content. So let's say you are a protocol. So you create a channel because you are going to send notifications for that protocol specific things. That's what a channel is. Maybe we might have to rethink the nomenclature a bit over here. But yeah.
The further we go into the future, the more people that are coming into the space that have never heard of a state channel anyway. So I think you're going to be okay. But what's interesting about this though is that this kind of creates like this sort of inbox,
Yeah.
right? So like, let's say I'm an address that subscribes to 10 different channels. What this does for like front end app developers, like let's say that I'm more of like an aggregator type of thing, like I'm Zapper,
Mhm.
right? Who just has this dashboard. I can basically just display like all my notifications across different channels if I want to. I'm assuming that's like part of the intention here.
Exactly. So again, shared username concept kicks in. If you have a shared username, every app and even crypto wallets, they will benefit once they show these notifications out. And these notifications are for a single user across their entire Web3 activity. So the user benefits the most, like from any dApp or from any crypto wallet, they're able to see in a nutshell like what were their activities and where their attentions are required to.
Gotcha. And then what are the notifications themselves? Like it looks like in your docs, you guys have like you guys are effectively creating a kind of standard, right? There's like a payload identity standard or payload identity
Mhm.
format, right? That you pass when you send a notification. Like what is this thing? I just like if I want to send a notification as Superfluid, I just basically structure my data in this specific format about like what the content is. I think it's a bunch of things like a bunch of like either separate strings or a bunch of things in the same string. Can you talk more about what the notification itself actually is?
Got it. So yeah, because we started back in 2020 and because, Web3 is ever evolving, like there were three things which we wanted to ensure that the notification can have. The first thing was that the notification needed to be content independent. Like we wanted the notification to mutate depending upon whatever the future use case might be. So notification could be a text, it can be an image, it can be a YouTube video, it can even in the future carry OTPs or encrypted transactions or whatever crazy thing you want to do. So basically, we knew that notification needed to be content independent. Uh, then the other thing that we knew was that we have to store these notifications, right? And what that storage would be, we didn't want to decide that for the user. So we realized that some people might prefer having a notification inbuilt in their smart contract. So we knew that uh, a form of storage can be Ethereum or any other EVM or non EVM chains. Then we also knew IPFS can be another form of storage. Then we also knew that some people might just want to send a direct payload out to our nodes, which are validator and indexer nodes. So we knew that it needs to be storage independent as well. And then we also knew that all these notifications that are coming from a source, we needed a way to identify what that source is. And we needed a way to verify that the notification that are coming from a source, they are indeed done by a particular wallet or done by a particular channel. So that is where verification proof came in. So, and this is what the payload standard became. Verification proof, which is the outer shell, it basically tells the people or tells the protocol that you can choose any sort of verification proof. And in the future, we will even have more verification proofs out there. But you can choose to sign your JSON payload and send it out. That's one sort of verification proof. You can put everything into our smart contract. That's another sort of verification proof. You can put something in your subgraph connected to your channel. And because those things can be verified and they are decentralized, that is again another sort of verification proof. So this is what the outer shell of the payload is. That is what we call as verification proof. You can read about it in our GitHub PIPs. After that, you had this storage, which we call as identity. Identity because this thing tells like where, I mean, if you have to imagine my identity is like what sort of person I am, where I stay, and how to reach me, and so on and so forth. And that's why we named it identity. Identity is basically a way to know where the payload was stored, how the payload was stored, and how to interpret it out. And then you had this content. Content is basically what type of notification is there, how to interpret that type, and so on. And when you combine all three of these things, you get basically content agnostic, storage agnostic, uh, multi-chain Web3 notifications, uh, which is what the payload is in essence. And we provide SDKs so that you don't have to do it all on your own. You can just use the SDK, and or people can go to docs.push.org and they can basically see the different types of identity. There's a direct identity as well. So they can use that, and as long as they are following the rules, those notifications will be delivered.
Very cool. Yeah, I want to come back and ask a couple of questions about just like some general philosophy on API development and developer experience, maybe toward the end of our conversation. But okay, so makes sense on what the notification itself specifically is. And it's kind of cool you built this kind of composable standard. What about how the notifications are actually sent themselves, right? So you mentioned nodes. What are these push delivery nodes, and like how do they work?
Got it. Interesting you bought out push delivery notes because that's something that's not out yet, but I have spoken about it. Uh, so yeah, uh, basically, what we realized was, and the vision is that you know notifications or a Web3 user is doesn't mean I mean a Web3 user doesn't necessarily mean that you will only be on Ethereum, right? It means that you can be on Ethereum, you can be on Polygon, and you can even be on Solana if you want to. And you are the same user, right? It's not like your identity has changed or you are a different individual. And even in Ethereum, you might have different addresses, but you are the same user. So, what we realized from very early on was that this communication system we are building it first for Ethereum, but then we are also building it for the rest of Web3. Uh, and that is why the concept of nodes were born. We kind of realized that for a communication system to be very efficient, uh, most of the time notifications will be sent from smart contract, but uh, I mean majority of the time they can also be sent from a backend as well. So basically, we realized that a smart contract is not the only way by which notifications can be sent. People can just send notifications out, even for Web3, which can be done from a backend. So, for example, when you have, let's say, governance or off-chain governance. Again, that's a Web3 related thing, but is happening off-chain. So you needed a way to also have an infra that can support off-chain notification. Or even when you go to, let's say, ENS domain expiry or near loan liquidations, all of those things are not on-chain events. So that meant that you needed to have a sort of node architecture wherein you can process these off-chain notifications and off-chain communication as well. So that basically led us to decide that if we want to have off-chain notification and if we want to support all the Web3 standards, the best way to do it is by creating a indexer and validator nodes that can basically listen and be adaptable to all the standards, whether it's Ethereum, whether it's Polygon, whether it's PNB, whether it's any other non EVM chain as well. And that was the reason for push nodes to be born. So, push nodes, if you have to think of it like a proof of stake node, which are validator and indexer nodes. And their job is to basically listen to all the communication that can come from any part of Web3 whenever this communication is received to them, whether from a push a smart contract deployed on Ethereum, deployed on Solana, deployed on Polygon, or whatever, or whether sent directly, they can basically unwrap this communication payload, quickly verify that this encrypted payload is indeed getting sent by a channel and is indeed what it claims it to be. And once this verification is done, admit it into the network and index it with all the wallets for which this communication is intended to be. And that is what push nodes essentially do. They basically make sure that the wallet, they basically ensures that any communication is indexed to a wallet after proper validation. And they also ensure that you can support off-chain communication as well as any communication, regardless of whether it comes from Ethereum or any other sort of Web3.
Interesting. Okay, so maybe I had my mental model off initially on what specifically a typical notification is. So nodes sound like this thing that allow you to go multi-chain
Yes.
and also to, in a way, kind of interface with the Web 2 world. But the actual, like a normal push notification itself, like as I would do it today, this is just an on-chain message or thing that basically it's just a transaction that is happening in a single chain in one environment that works pretty much how any other state changing operation would work in Web3. Is that a better way to summarize a standard transaction, or am I off there?
Yes and no. So I kind of realized like push delivery mode node I completely skipped over. So what I spoke about is push storage nodes. I kind of spoke about how these communications are indexed. So indexing or how these notifications are sent, I spoke about that. So basically, if you're a protocol and you want to send a notification, like there are two ways by which you can do it. A, you interact or interface directly with these nodes, and that means that you're completely off chain, you're completely gasless. Or B, you can interact with a smart contract of ours, which is a middleware smart contract, and you can send your notification payload over there. And what push nodes are doing is they're listening to our middleware smart contracts. So again, it's the same process. They will validate and index your notification on communications. Now, once this validation is done and your communication is stored in the network, then comes a process of receiving these notifications, right? That can be, or that is what we call as an alert or push notification in general. And for that, delivery nodes basically come into play. So basically, think about if you are, let's say, a wallet, you have three ways to get these notification displayed to your user. The first way is, of course, the basic API pull request, wherein you do a API call and you basically pull all the information down. The second is that you form a socket connection to this network. And once you form this socket connection, whatever communication is coming for a wallet address, as soon as it's validated, you can show it on the screen, whether it's a desktop, whether it's a uh, actually, that only applies to a desktop. And the third is the push notifications, which applies to mobile as well as desktop. In this case, you basically run a delivery node. The delivery node basically acts like a bridge between Web3 and Web2. So, whenever a communication comes for a wallet address, this delivery node that you are running locally, they basically map your wallet address to your mobile app device token, which is an analogy in the mobile world or in the Web2 world when it comes to push notifications. And using that mapping, they basically push these notifications out to Apple operating system or to Google operating system or to Chrome or to anywhere else. So these are the three ways by which delivery happens. Uh, Let me know if that was the question or if that was the answer
Yeah,
you were looking for.
that definitely helped. It also explained why I was going to ask you like how some of this is gasless, but I think yeah, you just basically answered that question as well. So cool. How about okay? So you have nodes already, and you have some other architectures for nodes that are planned and in the works, as you mentioned. Where does push currently sit on like the decentralization spectrum? Or like I know that certain protocols have gone about this different ways,
Got it.
right? Some teams approach this as, hey, we want to run everything in house first and slowly open it up. That's pragmatic. Other teams are very like super pro decentralization in the beginning, even if it's inconvenient or uptime's not great. They're, ideologically like that's just what they want to do and they approach it that way. Where do you guys fall on that spectrum?
Got it. So we kind of fall in between. Like, as I said, there are things in Web2 world that I really love. UX is one of it. So when we started, like back in 2020, we basically knew that we need to decentralize all of it. But we broke that into different phases. So decentralization, if you put it in a way, it's basically two things: content cannot be changed, like content should be immutable, and content cannot be censored. No content that gets sent out is censored. So when we started, we knew that content to be immutable is just as easy as developing a verification proof standard and attaching it. So anything that we are sending out, the front end, they don't have to rely that we didn't or did change the content. We couldn't because, the content is encrypted and you have a verification proof. So there's no way we can change it. So that part of decentralization is done. Content should not be censored. That part is basically what these push delivery nodes and sorry, that part is what push the storage nodes are basically going to achieve. And that is something which we are running right now, but we have plans to release the alpha version out of it in Q2 of 2023 for other users to run.
Got you. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, I think in the end it will be on the front ends that implement push, right? They want to support like what you guys are doing to decide whether or not they want to censor something, and they won't be able to do it at the actual layer of the protocol layer. It's a bit
Yeah.
like the internet, right?
Yeah.
I can send some piece of information over the internet. Uh, it's pretty tough to stop me from doing that. But a front end obviously has a different set of priorities and beliefs. So I think that makes a lot of sense.
I mean, just think about it, like every front end, they basically choose to do things, whether to censor something or not. And that's true even for MetaMask or any other front end that we have for Web3. But it's in their best interest to not censor things out because game theory kicks in. Like, imagine if all of a sudden a crypto wallet starts showing me I have like 1/10 of the ETH amount in my wallet address, and other wallets are showing me no, that's not true. I'm going to, of course, delete the front end that is showing false information. So, so yeah, I think game theory forces front ends to be truthful.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So okay, so on the front end, obviously there's you guys have good docs on like how to build a REST API to implement push on the front end. I mentioned earlier I wanted to come back to developer experience, right? Because part of, I mean, I'm assuming one of your main goals is to get people building with push, right? That's probably one of your number one things, right? I heard you guys had a phenomenal showing at ETH India in terms of a bunch of projects that built on you guys. How do you think about building developer APIs? I'll ask this question first, and I'll ask maybe a more community related question later. But like, do you have like team members that focus full time on just like building developer tooling and thinking through these things? How do you guys approach it?
I mean, the first way is something which we did when we started. Like, we had this idea, this communication idea, and what we knew was like what we want to build, but we, of course, knew that the best way for this protocol to be built was by making sure that we go to other protocols and we ask them like whatever their wants are, and we kind of said to ourselves that if we are able to satisfy all the demands of our first set of protocols, then we can call that as a V1, because then that means that it's very usable for the protocols. So I think we got lucky because, when we started approaching protocols like Uniswap or MakerDAO or DYDX or Decentraland or OSS or Gitcoin or Polygon or ENS or Decentraland. All of them, they basically knew that this is a problem that needed to be solved. And all of them were cool enough to say that, hey, we would help you guys build this and take this forward. So that was the way by which the protocol features and what protocol can do and cannot do was formed. That was the first way. And we still use this, but now it's getting diminished a lot. Now, the best way by which we refine our documentation and refine what we are doing is by going to the hackathons and basically just being there 24 by 7, interacting with a lot of hackers. If they have problem with any sort of feature, debugging it with them on the fly, and then updating everything, whatever we learn on the fly. So hackathons are like super sprints for us. And I think that kinda is what worked for us because this time around East India, we got 177 projects mm, to be built using push, and that's like mind blowing. I mean, I think we were the top three protocols on which people chose to build on. And I mean, one of the internal metrics which we were super proud of was that only 10% of those developers they came to us with questions and problems. So that was really mind blowing. Like we gave ourselves a pat on the back just because we knew that the documentation is working, and we saw like, I mean, we were very worried about the number of concerns that are coming in because we thought that maybe people are not building on push. So yeah, that was a very sweet surprise. But I think that kind of proves like what we are following in terms of improving documentation by going to a hackathon. It's kind of working.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Yeah, so you take a very community-driven approach from the beginning, and I think that that's we do a similar thing in terms of hackathons, and it has paid off for us too at Superfluid. But a couple of other questions just about like general engineering stuff that a lot of I think younger developers listening to this are curious about. Like, how have you throughout your career so far gone about upskilling and getting better as an engineer and as a developer? Uh,
Got it. I think it's basically by observing others. Like one like one of the stories which is around Superfluid is that I was fascinated by the way Superfluid did hackathons. Like uh, starting from Amsterdam, I think we started actually starting from Lisbon of last to last year maybe. Uh, we met Fran from Superfluid, and we kind of realized like the way Superfluid handles all the developers. Like there's always someone at the booth. That is what we copied from you, by the way. There's always this energy of Fran, and this way by which he'll talk very candidly to everyone, and get advice which is very genuine. So if Superfluid is something that a project will benefit from building, then Fran will tell them to build on Superfluid. Otherwise, it's like we are here to help. So again, that's one thing that we really loved about Fran, and that's what we observed. So we kind of started following that. So that's one advice like I would give to everyone. Like just try to observe people. Again, patterns or things which are done in Web 2, or if people are doing things that are working, that means you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can just uh, look at it as an open source thing and just copy it. So that's one thing that you guys should do. The other advice is that you know be shameless in asking questions. Like just if you have any problem, if you have any doubt, like Web3 or people who are actually Web3 oriented, they love to help. Like for example, when we started from the hackathon, like we just wrote a tweet out about what we are doing, and that tweet got comments from Kevin of Gitcoin or Yanev of Graph or Dan Finlay of MetaMask about things, and how cool it can be, or even things like something will work and something will not work. But the coolest thing we realized was like those Web3 mentors, they wanted to help us build something because they love the idea. And even Web3 community, like someone gifted us our ENS domain, someone offered us to help building a community out, and so many things like Web3 or Ethereum community is just very awesome. So just ask question and be humble, and they basically go out of their way to help. Like they will give you their time, their resources, just to make sure that your project and your idea uh, can take off. And the last thing is like whatever you want to do, start with a hackathon. A hackathon will make sure that your project and protocol It gets polished. You have provided the right tools about it, and it gets judged by leading Web3 mentors and leading Web3 people, which basically means that they can help your project grow that much fast, and you can reach out to them for advice. So, so yeah, those are the three things that I will probably advise everyone.
Fantastic advice. I can definitely second the focus on hackathons. I think hackathons are a great experience both for protocols that want to grow their community and people that are looking to just get involved. 100% second you on that one. How about on the other end? How about any bad advice you see that you wish people would just ignore or or stop giving?
Uh, so bad advice, like, I mean, don't look at Web3 as a way to release your tokens and, you know, get like flip the money. Like some investors will give you that. You need to run away from those investors because those investors will never help you grow. They're just dumb money. And more than that, they will hurt your community and they will set you back. So, initial founders, I know I got so indebted with some of the investors who said that, take the money and just make sure that, just make sure to launch the token and then we'll figure the utility out. Uh, Fortunately, I mean, that got offsetted for us because before we could bring them on, we got investors like Balaji or Sandeep from Polygon or DeFi Dad or Mariano Conti or True Ventures or Binance Lab or IOSC or Tiger Global and so on and so forth. And they basically told us that investors are there because not because that you need money. I mean, money is easy to get, though it doesn't seem like that when you're starting. It never seemed like that to me. But in the long run, you kind of realize like money is the easiest, relatively speaking, to get, but good investors who can help you scale, who can help you actually get your protocol adopted, are hard to get. So try to get good investors. That's one thing, or run away from investors who basically say that launch token in a month or 2 months. You can kind of see where they are going for. Actually, one investor told me this, like, if an investor tells you to reduce the cliff or vesting period, you know what's on their mind. So never go for that. So just a heads up on that. The second bad advice is, it's not a advice, but it's something which I see a lot of founders do, myself included, is the apprehension of sharing the idea to the world. So it comes from Web2, wherein people don't want to share their tech, everything is closed. So it's kind of like this thought that if I share the idea to a VC, they will just copy it and my idea will go away. In time, I learned that VCs, they don't steal ideas, they try to steal products. And anyway, like no good VC will do that. Uh, I mean, ideas, we see ideas like it's $1 million idea, but it's actually $1 billion execution. So VCs and angels, they are looking to back founders because they believe in the idea, but more so they believe in the founder and the way they can execute. So it's a advice. I don't say that was a bad advice, but yeah, just make sure that you're talking openly about your idea. Is the execution that VCs look out for, not the ideas. So talk talk about your idea wherever or whatever chance you get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think those are all very specific. I think somewhat specific, maybe somewhat specific to Web3, but very, very good advice from someone who's probably seen a lot so far. So I appreciate you sharing that. Okay, two other relatively quick questions as we wrap up. The first is, what are you excited for people to build on Push? What do you hope the devs listening to this go out and build?
So I mean, I am really excited by innovative use cases like uh, I mean, for example, like wallet to wallet video call, if you break the architecture down, it's just based on using notification as a decentralized webhook. So it's such a novel idea, and it unlocks so much potential. So I'm really excited about extending the boundaries of what we do. But in general, I'm always excited about uh, financial things that can be done, and notifications and chat that should be a basic primary stack for it. So I'm excited about that. I'm excited about NFT marketplaces as well. What notification and chat can unlock in that. Like, this is a very social thing. I mean, speaking of social, of course, I'm excited about Lens and other social Web3 media. Push is already working with Lens for notifications, but I would love all the other decentralized social media to start using it, because that is what Web2 does. Like any social media you take, notifications is what drive us towards them. So those three things I'm really, really excited about. By the way, I'm very excited about, and I'm not sure if we have announced that. So in case we haven't, we will probably cut this out. But I'm very excited about Superfluid because that is one notification area wherein I think it will help the Web3 users a lot. Like it will improve the UX a ton. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah, we're excited as well. Yeah, it's been cool playing around with Lens too, just to call that specific use case out. And I think it's cool with EPNS as well, or not. Sorry, not EPNS, Push as well, um, because different Lens front ends can basically just take the notifications with them, right? Which is pretty awesome. Um, Final question. This is something we ask everybody that comes on. You've been in this space for a while. You've seen lots of different market cycles and lots of different environments. What do you hope Web3 looks like in 10 years? What do you hope we accomplish? Any answer
got it.
is appreciated.
I mean, 10 years, it's a long, long time. I do know like Web3 will replace almost all the services of Web2 in 10 years time frame. Uh, I mean, just think about it. Like, it's such a clever and a democratized and better way of doing things. Like, for example, let's say YouTube. YouTube earns because of content creators, and they get paid so less, and users who are watching those contents, who are the actual product, they don't get paid at all. Now flip that around to a Web3 version of YouTube. All of a sudden, the content creators are paid the most, the users are paid, and people who run the YouTube, which will probably be through nodes or through tokenized system, they basically get the part of the revenue. So the company becomes the people, the product becomes the actual product and not the users, and everyone benefits in this game theory. And this can be applied anywhere, like even if you go to social media. Like, it's such a good concept that content creators, they get paid, and you you basically carry the value of the content with you. Like, I'm not a different person when I'm on Twitter and when I'm on Facebook. But because of the Web2 philosophies, the data is owned by Facebook or Twitter. So I have to prove again on Facebook that I have a million users on Twitter. But when you come to Web3 social, that is solved. Like, I carry my data, my identity, my communication along with me. And therefore, I don't go to a protocol or I don't go to a social network and I have to rebuild that value again. It kind of is such a better way of looking at things. So, because of those things, like, I know that the money thing actually works. It's so easy to, send money and send crypto to one another. But more than that, once you look at identity, once you look at pseudo anonymous, once you look at revenue and how it's incentivized and shared, and once you look at data being owned by you. You kind of realize that Web3 is just the next innovation of Web2. So just like how Web1 or static contents was replaced by content that is dynamic, and that is basically because websites understand their users. The next step is that the websites or these services are replaced by users who choose to run these services for other users, and because they are running it, they are incentivized and rewarded for it.
Fascinating. What one last thing? I heard you mention game theory a couple of times. Uh, is game theory something you make use of a lot in the way you think about these systems and the industry as a whole? And if so, like, do you have any like game theory books or resources you could recommend to our audience?
Yes, so I'm a huge fan of game theory. I think like when we design push also, without going into all those token economics detail, because I don't think this podcast is about that. But yeah, we kind of followed game theory a ton. Uh, I will not go into push game theory, but for example, let me give you an example of the game theory of Bitcoin, or I mean game theory in general. Like, you know, it basically dictates that you need to, whatever game you are designing, that game can be anything. It can be a game of chess, it can be a game of hiring or your organization, it can be a game of protocol. You basically need to do three things. Like, first is you need to incentivize the right behavior. Second is you need to penalize the wrong behavior. And that basically creates a win-win scenario wherein the game progresses because of right incentivization and right penalization. So there's this thing I used to recommend. It's called ntrust.me. Uh, I'm just checking where is uh, okay. It's I'll probably send the link out later and you can tag it. But it basically talked about like if you get the game theory right for 60% of people playing the game will never corrupt itself. And this is what you see with Ethereum and Bitcoin and so many other protocols that do it right. They basically utilize the game theory. I mean, even Twitter does it. Like, we don't get to know about it, but Twitter as a organization, they want you to get, they want you to add new content to them, right? So what they do, they incentivize you to write a content because for your interest, or it's in your interest if your content is viewed by a lot of people. So what Twitter algo does is that if you write good content, Twitter algo will make sure that it reaches more and more users. So you benefit and Twitter benefit because of it. Penalization is also there. It's not in terms of financial penalization, but it's in terms of views as well. So if you write bad content, you might get less views. If you write inappropriate content, you might get banned. So you basically have penalization that basically asks the users to correct their behavior to be aligned more towards an incentivized and an aligned look. And combine those two things, you see Twitter working well because the game theory that they have designed works very, very well. And you can apply this anywhere, like to almost any instance. Even the conversation we are having, me and Sam. Uh, I mean, the game theory is like Sam is asking me good questions, and hopefully, I'm providing you with good answers. And because of that, the viewers will listen more, and Sam will invite me again. The penalization is if that's not the case, if I'm shelling, then probably I'll not be invited again. So there's a game theory over here as well.
There you go. There you go. I love it. Yeah, I'm glad I asked about that because I know it came up a couple times. So yeah, if you're a Web3 builder, go check out Game Theory. I'll put the link. Please send me that link,
Yeah.
Harsh, and I'll put the link in our show notes. But thank you again for coming on today. This has been a great conversation.
Thanks, Sam. Thanks for having me. It was really fun.